Have you ever felt a shiver down your spine when you were home alone? Like someone or something was watching you from the shadows? Tonight, we delve into the unsettling world of home alone horror stories. These are true accounts, whispered by those who experience the chilling embrace of fear when left alone in the supposed safety of their own homes. Join me, if you dare, as we explore the darkness that lurks behind closed doors and the terrifying encounters that unfold when the lights go out.
It was a stormy Friday night. Rain lashed against the windows, the wind howled like a banshee, and the old house creaked and groaned around me. My parents were at a dinner party, leaving me home alone for the night. I was engrossed in a book, trying to ignore the sounds of the storm when I heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from the attic. At first, I dismissed it as just the wind or maybe a stray animal that had found its way into the attic. But the scratching continued, growing louder and more insistent. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I slowly made my way upstairs, each step filled with a growing sense of dread. The scratching sound seemed to intensify as I got closer to the attic door. My heart pounded in my chest as I reached for the doorknob. It was ice cold to the touch. I hesitated for a moment, fear threatening to overwhelm me. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The attic was dark and dusty, lit only by the occasional flash of lightning through a small window. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and something else I couldn't quite place, something vaguely unsettling. The scratching had stopped. I stood there for a moment, listening intently, but there was nothing but an eerie silence. I was about to turn and leave when I heard it again. A slow, deliberate dragging sound coming from the far end of the attic. I froze, my blood turning to ice, my eyes strained in the darkness, trying to make out the source of the sound. Then, I saw it. A dark figure, hunched over in the shadows. It moved slowly, dragging something heavy across the attic floor. I couldn't make out any features, but I could feel its eyes on me, watching me. Terror gripped me, paralyzing me in place. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot, my body trembling uncontrollably. The figure continued to drag whatever it was carrying towards me, the dragging sound echoing through the silent attic. As it got closer, I could make out a faint, low growl emanating from it. I knew then that I had to do something to get out of there. Summoning every ounce of courage, I turned and ran, scrambling down the attic stairs as fast as I could. I didn't stop running until I reached my room, slamming the door shut and locking it behind me. I huddled in the corner, my heart racing, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I listened intently, but all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart and the sound of the storm raging outside. I spent the rest of the night huddled in my room, too terrified to move. The next morning, my parents returned home, finding me pale and shaken. I told them what I had seen and heard, but they dismissed it as a nightmare brought on by the storm and my overactive imagination. But I knew what I had seen. I knew what I had heard, and I knew that I would never forget the terror of that night alone in the house with whatever lurked in the attic.
I was 12 years old, home alone one hot summer afternoon. My parents were both at work and the house was eerily quiet. I was sprawled out on the living room floor, flipping through a magazine, when I noticed something strange. Shadows seemed to be dancing at the edge of my vision, flickering and shifting as if alive. At first, I thought it was just the sunlight filtering through the blinds, creating odd patterns on the walls. But as I continued to watch, the shadows grew more defined, taking on shapes that sent chills down my spine. One moment, I'd see the silhouette of a hunched figure. The next, a fleeting glimpse of something with long, sharp claws. My heart began to pound in my chest, a cold sweat prickling at my skin. I tried to rationalize it, to tell myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, a primal fear was starting to take root. As the shadows grew bolder, I started hearing whispers, soft and indistinct at first, like the rustling of leaves. They seemed to come from every corner of the room, swirling around me, whispering my name. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, morphing into guttural voices that sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was undeniably menacing, filled with an icy malice that made my blood run cold. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding in my ears, my breath catching in my throat. The room seemed to be closing in on me, the shadows pressing in, the whispers growing louder, more threatening. I ran to the window, desperate for the reassurance of sunlight, but the shadows followed me, twisting and contorting on the walls, their whispers echoing my every thought, mocking my fear. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and I whirled around, a scream caught in my throat. But there was nothing there. Just the shadows, dancing and swirling, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. I stumbled back, my eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape from this nightmare. The air grew heavy, oppressive, making it hard to breathe. I felt a presence in the room with me, something dark and malevolent, toying with me, savoring my fear. I couldn't take it anymore. I bolted for the front door, my hand shaking as I fumbled with the lock. The whispers followed me, urging me to stop, to come back, their tone laced with a chilling promise of what awaited me if I stayed. I finally managed to get the door open and stumbled out into the bright sunlight. I didn't stop running until I reached the safety of my neighbor's house, my lungs burning, my legs aching, the whispers still echoing in my ears. To this day, I can't explain what I saw or heard that afternoon, but I know it was real. And I'll never forget the terror of being alone in that house, surrounded by shadows and whispers, hunted by something I couldn't see, but could feel closing in on me.
I was home alone, preparing for a big presentation the next day. My family was out of town, and the silence of the empty house was both comforting and unnerving. I had always felt safe within the familiar walls of my home, but tonight, an unsettling feeling clung to me like a shroud. As I sat at my desk, reviewing my notes, I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. It started subtly, a prickling at the back of my neck, an uneasy feeling that I was not alone. I tried to ignore it, attributing it to stress and fatigue, but the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing moment. I would catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of shadow in the hallway, a curtain rustling when there was no breeze. Every time I turned to look directly, there was nothing there, but the feeling of being observed lingered, sending shivers down my spine. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but deep down, a primal fear began to take root. The house itself seemed to hold its breath, the silence broken only by the incessant ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, each tick a hammer blow to my nerves. As the night wore on, the feeling of being watched intensified. I started hearing soft, almost imperceptible footsteps outside my bedroom door, slow and deliberate, as if someone was pacing back and forth, their gaze boring into me. I would jump at every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the old house, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon me, watching my every move, reading my every thought. I lay in bed, paralyzed by fear, the feeling of being watched suffocating me, driving me to the edge of madness. The hours dragged on, each one an eternity. I longed for the first light of dawn, for the reassuring sounds of my family returning home. Finally, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the cracks in the curtains, the oppressive feeling began to lift. The footsteps outside my door ceased, the unseen eyes no longer felt upon me. I cautiously emerged from my room, my body trembling with exhaustion and residual fear. The house was bathed in the soft glow of morning, and for a moment I felt a sense of relief, of normalcy returning. But as I looked around, I noticed something that sent a fresh wave of terror through me. On the coffee table in the living room where I had been working the night before lay a single white rose. It was fresh, the petals still damp with dew, its fragrance heavy in the air. But there was no card, no indication of who could have left it there. And in that moment, I knew with chilling certainty that I had not been alone in the house that night.
Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of Home Alone horror stories. Remember, these are just a few of the countless tales of terror experienced by those who found themselves facing the unknown within the supposed safety of their own homes. If you enjoyed these spine-chilling accounts, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more true horror stories. And don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Until next time, sleep tight if you dare.